were missing as a child, what happened? My parents both worked full-time, and we had this neighbor, Ramona, who was like 50-something and would sometimes watch me after school. She wasn't like our regular babysitter or anything, just the nice lady who would let me hang out at her place if my parents were running late from work. Ramona was always super nice to me. She would bake these amazing chocolate chip cookies and let me watch whatever I wanted on TV. She had this huge collection of old movies and would tell me stories about when she was younger. Looking back now, she didn't have any family or other friends that I ever saw. It was just her in that little yellow house with all those ceramic cat figurines everywhere. Anyway, one Friday after school, Ramona was waiting for me instead of my mom, which wasn't that weird. Sometimes my mom would call her if she got stuck at work. But then Ramona was like, "Guess what? We're going on a special trip." And I was so excited because I hardly ever got to go anywhere fun. She told me my parents said it was okay for us to go on a surprise weekend trip to see this amazing butterfly garden in Ohio. She said they wanted it to be a surprise for me and they'd meet us there on Sunday. I remember being confused about why I didn't need to pack anything, but she said she already had everything I would need. So we got in her old blue station wagon and started driving. I remember being super excited at first, but then the drive kept going and going. Ramona kept telling me stories and playing music and giving me snacks so I wasn't bored or anything. But after a few hours, I started asking when we would get there and when I could call my parents. She kept saying stuff like, "Just a little bit longer," and "Your parents want this to be a special surprise, we can't call them yet." Then she started acting different. Like, she'd be super happy one minute telling me about all the beautiful butterflies we were going to see. Then the next minute, she'd get really quiet and keep looking in the rearview mirror a lot. We stopped at this motel that night, and I remember it had this weird smell, and the carpet was this gross orange color. Ramona wouldn't let me watch TV, which was weird because she always let me watch whatever at her house. She said the TV was broken, but I could hear sounds from the room next door, so I knew that wasn't true. The next day, we didn't go to any butterfly garden. Instead, we drove to this cabin in the middle of nowhere. She told me the butterfly garden was closed for cleaning, so we were going to stay here until it opened again. The cabin was dusty and small and had no phone. I started crying because I wanted to talk to my mom and dad, and Ramona got super upset. This is where things get really weird and scary, TBH. She started telling me that my parents actually didn't want me anymore, and that's why they let her take me. She said they were too busy with work and thought I would be happier with her. I remember just sobbing and her trying to comfort me, saying we could be happy together and she would never be too busy for me. That night I pretended to be asleep, but I could hear her talking to herself and pacing around the cabin. She kept saying stuff like, "They don't appreciate her," and "We'll be happy just us," over and over. On the third day, I was sitting on the porch while Ramona was inside making lunch. This old man walked by with his dog and waved at me. I waved back and he came closer and asked if I was there with my family. I told him no. I was with Ramona waiting for the butterfly garden to open. I must have looked upset because he asked if I was okay and if I wanted to pet his dog. I went to pet the dog and the man asked more questions about who Ramona was and where my parents were. I told him I hadn't talked to them in days and I really missed them. He got this weird look on his face and said he needed to go but would come back. Like an hour later, there were police cars everywhere. Ramona started freaking out, grabbing me and trying to run out the back door, but they already had people there too. I remember being so confused and scared, and this female officer wrapped me in a blanket and carried me to her car while Ramona was screaming that they were taking her baby. When I got home, my parents were crying and hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. They kept asking if I was hurt, or if she touched me inappropriately, which she didn't. Everyone was treating me super weird and gentle, but from my perspective, I had just gone on a trip that ended badly. I didn't understand why everyone was making such a big deal. But turns out Ramona had been fired from her job the week before she took me, and my parents had never asked her to watch me that day. She had been telling people in town that I was actually her daughter who had been stolen by my parents. She apparently had lost a daughter about my age years earlier and had convinced herself that I was somehow her child.